Meeting continue. Alrighty. Hello, I'd like to say Biwa Paleok, and just want to welcome you to our show today, our little talk series, I call it. I'm just going to quickly introduce myself because I wanted to be all about you, so I don't want to take up a lot of time.
No problem.
But I'm doing these little series talks on did you know certain facts for the general public. And I'm with Amarinda, INC, which is Amarinda American Indian Arts Organization here in New York City, where we represent the mixed media indigenous arts community here in New York. And I am Halawasaponi and Tuscarora. My name is John Scott-Richardson. I'm an enrolled member of the Halawasaponi tribe in North Carolina. So just wanted to kind of maybe, if you wanted to introduce yourself to the viewers, we greatly have you do so right now.
Yeah, no problem. First of all, thank you for having me. It's greatly appreciated. My name is Quentin Glabus. I am currently residing in New York City here, originally from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. My mother is of the Frog Lake Cree First Nations. And long story short, I guess, is I have been a professional chef now for the past 20 plus years. I won't get into the details of how long because then you'll find out the true age of myself and I'm not ready to let go just yet. But I have, in those 20 plus years, have been studying and working with, in the past 5 years, along with fellow Indigenous chefs to, one, become better educated about not just myself and my mom's culture through its cuisine, but with just Indigenous culture and heritage through its cuisine of Turtle Island.
Yes.
And expanding on a global stage. So with that being said, I guess you could say I specialize in modern takes on Indigenous ingredients with a little bit of dabbling into pre-colonial cuisine.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's fantastic. We appreciate that. And definitely appreciate you being a part of this show. The significance of this is, which to Indigenous people, we celebrate basically being Indigenous all year long. But, you know, of course, we live in this type of world now where there's certain holidays here and there and stuff. And so I felt it'd be appropriate to, you know, talk about, we can have the month of November because there's always a big focus on food, right? So we can't, so it felt like, you know, Indigenous food to me is the background of really what America has been built upon, right? Amongst other things, but that is one of them, right? And so just to give a quick, to the viewers or people who might chime in, a little backstory on how you and I met, and is through a program that Amarinda had done where you actually catered the event, and then they and I was doing a program this year at Richmond Town, historic Richmond Town in Staten Island, and I asked them, did they know any Native chefs? Because I didn't know any in New York. And they would say, well, give this guy Quentin a call. And I was like, Quentin? Oh, all right. And then they hit me with the last name. And I was like, okay, now how am I going to say the last name?
Yeah, the last name, it always kind of throws people off. It is of German descent. My father is of German descent. So
okay.
My mother Native, my father Caucasian.
Right.
You could say I'm like an apple. I'm red, I'm white, I'm delicious, I'm sweet, with the odd sour, with that every odd bite that, you know, you're like, oh. But I mean,
here, that little.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's me. That's who I am. I don't hide it. I share it.
Right.
But you know, everyone knows the other side of the story, but not too many people know a lot about the Indigenous side. So that's what I relate to a lot as well. I mean, if you look at me, I look more Indigenous. You put me in the Philippines or in Asia, everyone thinks I'm Asian, but they don't know better.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
And then you also, the thing is too, that a lot of people because this might be getting off subject a little bit, but it's not technically. But when we identify, it's our cultures that really identify us. It's our communities, right? That's how we were raised and brought up, right? And we are connected to that, right? We understand that connection to culture is also our connection to our ceremonies and spirituality and our songs and our sort of our outlook on how we see ourselves in the world, right? And so that's, I think, is very important, right? I think it's very important.
Yeah.
And so just kind of jump in here again. It's very informal. I don't really like for it to be, oh, let's question one. I leave, God bless him. I leave that up to Alex Trebek because he was good at that, right? But
yeah, he was good. He was really good.
Yeah, and so, but I'm not that way. I'm just how I am. So I just kind of wanted, because like I said, the time is going to get going on us because I'm gonna let you do most of the talking on these topics. But what are some, say, facts that you feel like native indigenous food in your experience has been like the foundation for what the world, what are some of the key aspects of those foods that you see the world doesn't realize, like the regular average Joe person walking out here going to a restaurant to order, say spaghetti, right? Because the issue with tomatoes, right? So, or someone ordering, say yams for sweet potatoes, right? Or yuca, right? For instance, and just corn, right? So what do you, and they don't look at it like we do, right? We look at it. So what are some of your thoughts on that? I'll let you talk about that.
All right. Well, there's a lot of things that can be said about that. First and foremost, I'm going to say this. Everything that I'm sharing with you and whoever may be participating in this call or this video has been through trial and error and learning and researching and talking with other indigenous chefs. And I was not blinded. I was just unaware myself growing up. I mean, to me, let's talk about tomatoes because you brought it up. To me, tomatoes, tomatoes, you get it from the grocery store or you get the seeds, you plant them, you grow them, you eat them. And oh, hey, if you really need to, you can go and get them in a can. I wasn't worried about where they came from or what their ancestry is. I mean, to me, when I was 19, graduating from culinary school, that's when I said to myself, I want to specialize in and represent the indigenous platform in the culinary world. And I was like, I'm going to cook indigenous cuisine. I'm going to cook duck, rabbit, elk, moose, and wild game, wild fish, and seafood.
Right.
That's what I knew. But that's not even scratching the scratch of the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
That's just a young individual who graduated just knowing that's what he wanted to do. Other than if you ask anyone, Kate, what's indigenous cuisine? They're going to tell you, oh yeah, it's maple syrup and wild rice. Well, no, there's that can be another video set aside for later, but that's not today.
Right.
So getting back to it, there's more behind it. There's a lot of unknown information out there that just people just don't know because they're not educated or have not been educated, or they just presume that this is what it is. Right. So talking about the tomatoes, and when you think tomatoes, you think tomato sauce, and right away everyone thinks Italian because Italians make a kick-ass tomato sauce. Let's face it, right? Now at the same time, let's talk about corn And since we're on the topic of tomato and Italians, polenta,
Right,
right?
right.
So we'll get to that after tomatoes. Tomatoes, as shared by me, or actually, tomatoes are not an indigenous species to Italy.
Right.
They're actually an introduced species that was either gifted, given in trade, stolen, accidentally taken from somebody, a sailor who was, oh, I'm going to eat this tomato, spit out the seeds on the ship. They stay there, they wash out, and or whatever the possibilities may be.
Right.
But a lot of people don't understand that. From my studies, and I'm sure there's someone out there who knows more, and by all means, if someone knows more and can correct me and bring me up to speed on the information that I'm going to share, I welcome it, because it's going to make me better at the end.
Right.
But tomatoes generated or came from Central America in the Aztec, and I believe it was either the Aztec or the Aztec in the Mexico region were actually the first people to actually take corn, or not corn, but tomatoes, and cultivate it into a crop.
Right.
And not too many people are aware of that. And to me, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I mean, me, I at the time, I thought the biggest, most interesting fact about tomatoes was tomatoes are not vegetables, they're fruit.
Fruit, right.
And I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Right, right.
And then to learn about that, I was like, yeah, exactly. You know, boom, light bulb.
Right.
And then we talk about corn. Corn, one of the best things other than boiled corn with butter and salt on it, or charred broiled corn or whatever, is polenta. I mean, everyone loves a great polenta, and if you make it properly, it's fantastic. And Italians, they're the gods of making polenta. They do it right, and they kick butt at it. I'm not gonna say no.
Right, we're not arguing that point.
Exactly. Boom, there you go. But let's talk about polenta. Corn is not indigenous to Italy as well. And it's another introduced species. And that all goes back and back and back to a dish known as corn mush, or more traditionally known as blue corn mush, made with blue cornmeal. And blue corn mush, I mean, just to name a couple groups, the Navajo obviously are famous for it. Even the Muncie people of the state of New York, they that was in their diet as well. And essentially all in its most simple form is blue cornmeal, or white or yellow cornmeal, with water, a natural sweetener such as honey, maple syrup, or agave if they had it at the time. I'm not too sure.
And they mix some fruit in there.
Exactly. And then just mushed fruit, or you could even, to help increase like the protein, some it's on the tip of my tongue, some dried up meat, pemmican. That's something as well.
Right.
But an interesting fact is, if you find or come across a recipe for blue corn mush, there's juniper ash in this. And to me, this is fascinating, because I was doing a little bit of research when I was doing an event in September about blue corn mush. And by adding juniper ash, you're actually adding calcium to the dish. And a lot of people don't know that 1 gram of juniper ash carries the same amount, if not a little more, of the calcium found in 1 serving of whole milk of 230 mils. And to me, that's fascinating. And then at the same time, which makes sense, because a lot of indigenous people, or the majority of indigenous people, don't know that they're lactose intolerant. Thankfully, I'm not, because I love ice cream.
Yeah. Oh, don't cut the ice cream. You cut everything out, but don't cut the cheese and the ice cream. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, woo, boy. I had ice cream yesterday. This is jumping way across, but I had ice cream yesterday at like a friend of mine bought ice cream for me at like 11 o'clock in the day. I mean, I'm eating ice cream for lunch, right? You know, I mean, I'm always eating ice cream. So, but yeah, that's it. Those things. It's. I mean, again, like you said, you're not taking anything about from what maybe the Italian culture, how they perfected things, right? But you know, there is an origin from where these things once came, and those things help
Yeah.
people to survive, right? And
Exactly.
with that survival comes of empowerment, right? Because you kind of can claim that oh, these things helped us, and for us, we knowing our traditional people, they had things attached to them like song and ceremony, and because they were giving thanks, right, for the abundance, or giving thanks for these seeds that we have cultivated and nurtured and cared for. And now they're caring for us because they're providing substance for our bodies, right? And so,
Correct.
you know, and so that's where I think the mainstream, in a sense, world may have lost, in some areas, lost that sense of original connection or original connection to these things, right? To understand. I mean, other places they have other foods that we don't have here, right? You know, in other places of the world. But we know when there are documents that say when settlers or people came to these shores, they saw this almost like the Garden of Eden, right? Because it was so much abundance here of everything from animals to plant life to flowers and all of these things that, you know, they didn't know even existed, right? And it just was like you said, like a Garden of Eden to their eyes, right? And, you know, so that just kind of like, I really appreciate that, because I think the people listening need to know, you know, that those sort of nuanced areas of how food is viewed and looked at, you know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with 100% there. I mean, and even a couple trends in the food industry are, if you think about it, I'll just jump into a couple examples.
Yeah.
There was, and still is, the whole snout to tail trend, where, you know, a restaurant will design a menu or have their menu based on the snout to tail. I'm just going to call it a trend, where
Concept or whatever.
yeah, exactly. Sorry, concept,
Right.
where they order in, say, a whole pork or a whole pig, and they use everything from end to end, right? Everything in the carcass gets used up and processed, and they create a menu with it, which is fantastic because it utilizes every part of the animal.
Right.
Little to zero waste, which is a great thing.
Right.
And financially, yeah, you save money.
Yeah.
Great concept. Fantastic. Everyone should be practicing this, even in households. Easier said than done, obviously.
Right.
But let's face it, indigenous people have been doing that for centuries before this concept even took place. That was survival. And even further, where, and I'm just going to use buffalo, where sure, they may not have been using the bones to make stock, but they're using the bones and the hooves to make knives, weapons, tools, cups, containers, combs, so forth and so forth and so forth. So they're just taking it to another level.
Right.
We take a look at the 50-mile, 100-mile, or converted to kilometers if you're in Canada.
Right.
The 100-mile or 50-mile.
Is that why Saskatchewan is so long? Because y'all use kilometers instead of miles?
No, we just don't have as many states.
I'm just messing with you.
But the concept between the 10-mile, 50-mile, or 100-mile menu is that from your point of origin in a 100-mile circumference around you, you're utilizing the different suppliers in that area. So Farmer Joe and his partridges, farmer Sarah and her rabbits and so forth and so forth, right? So you're bringing awareness to the smaller farmers and producers for the product.
Yeah.
Indigenous people have been doing that for centuries beforehand,
Right.
just with foraging and cultivating and hunting and so forth and so forth. So all great concepts, but all
Nothing
derived
new.
from exactly nothing new, just turned into a selling point.
Yeah. And that's even like too, like one thing, like, you know, my mom and dad, they live on a farm in North Carolina, which I would really love to someday when you got time to travel and we can all travel again and go places, to come down, you know, to where my parents live and in Holliston, North Carolina. I mean, they're not right now, they're picking pecans, right? The pecan trees, I mean, they have 4 large pecan trees that this year, like, well, most years they put out pretty good, but this year all 4 of them are putting out like crazy. So my mom is there, which I have to help them figure out a way to harvest, you know, to harvest these a little better so they're not hurting their backs and picking, you know, because this is labor intensive work, right? You're bending over all day and so forth. But I mean, picking up pounds of pecans and she's selling them now at the grocery stores and, you know, people that she built up a list for and all that kind of stuff. But that's a seasonal thing, right? So you got like 2 months of this activity that's based around pecans, which again, you know, go for regular just regular unshelled or shell pecans to pecan pie to, you know, pecan topping on casseroles for salads, all this stuff, right? That can come from just this one activity for 2 months, right? And this is just one food or a nut item that's coming off. So that concept plus the hunter-gatherer concept that, you know, when certain berries were in season and certain things were accessible, you know, that were more. But then you also get into canning, right? So preserving this meat and preserving this food to carry us through the winter months and all that kind of stuff, which again, not new concepts to us, right? But just,
canning maybe just because we didn't have cans back then.
Right. Yeah. And I told my mom, I said, you should teach a canning class, right? Because how many young people know how to preserve, you know, say those nice tomatoes, right? And how many people know how to make almost like a kimchi style sauerkraut, right? And with lettuce and all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, you know, these are things that to me are just normal because that's how I grew up, right? But to the average person, they don't have a clue. But then when you have an understanding of the food, you understand conservation, right? Because you know what it took to get that food, right? You know what processes and effort went into that. So you're a little bit more or less likely to be very wasteful, right? As a society, if you knew better how that food came to your table, right? You know, it's just kind of these little hidden, I like to always look for these little hidden areas where you can learn, you can teach, and you can, you know, kind of poke, you know.
And that's one of the beautiful things about cooking in general is not one person knows everything.
Right.
I mean, let's face it, if we really want to say that cooking is the easiest thing to learn, it's not. If you think about it on an international global concept, that's a lot of different fields to master. There are chefs out there that have been better at mastering, just because they've put in the dedication and the sacrifice and the hard work to do it. But that's them, which to me is a great thing. Great, do it. I've been trying to, more so in the past 10 years than anything, learn more about my culture through its cuisine. I've been very fortunate enough that I've had the honor and the pleasure to travel and work on the international stage in Japan, China, Taiwan, Rio de Janeiro, and learning about their culture through its cuisine, and then doing fusion culture with Canadian ingredients and indigenous ingredients with their ingredients to create new ideas in cooking and fusion cuisine. but yeah, I want to know more about my culture through its cuisine. I want to know about my heritage. Like right now, one of the things with the indigenous culture is, well, one of the big things is facing is just in general extinction. Right. When you think extinction, or you're like, oh, like the black rhino or these animals that are going to extinct. Yeah, that's a problem.
Right.
But in the indigenous culture, the people are here. We're here. We're not going away.
Right.
Let's face it. And that's a great thing. But what's happening is with everything that's happened through history has had this long domino effect where we're in the indigenous culture, everything that has been taught and passed down through generation has been through teachings, storytelling, doing and practicing. Nothing has been documented until
we're oral culture, right? We're oral people.
Exactly. And with what I'm doing, along with all the other indigenous chefs in one form or another, is we are doing our best to keep and document and practice and to teach others through what we've learned about our cultures and its cuisine and the techniques and the ingredients that have been used, and will hopefully continue to be used and passed down the line.
Yeah, that's very true, because I know, like you said, and the thing is too, a lot of our indigenous native youth or kids are they're instinctually tactile and hands-on, right? So you can, like, I know for myself, somebody can show me to do something one time, and it's very rare that I'll forget any steps in that process because I've seen it, right? And then if I actually do it with my hands, it's like committing it to memory through the activity of what you're doing, not reading it on a paper and then trying to figure it out, right? That's how most of our indigeneity of our people just has that natural instinct to learn that way. Really, I think personally, because I'm in theater, and I know that once I'm up on my feet, moving, saying my lines, I never forget my lines. But if I sit in a chair all day trying to remember my lines, it is going to be a struggle because I'm sitting. Right? I need to move and attach certain movement with words, right?
Yeah.
And so, and like you say, and then also the language. You think about how important language. Like my community, we don't have any more fluent speakers now. The language is being resurrected, and there's a resurgence of the learning of the language, right? But unless you can actually hear it, it's hard to really say the word the way it's supposed to be said if you don't hear it from somebody that speaks it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can have linguists that know how to put the words together on paper and pronounce it, but it's even different when you hear a fluent speaker speak it, right? So
exactly, because then you're adding an accent, you're adding not just the accent on how the word is pronounced or spoke, you're adding in an indigenous accent, which changes everything. It's like when we were in Rio and learning Brazilian Portuguese, you hear a person from Rio de Janeiro speak Portuguese versus someone in Sao Paulo, and you're going, okay, that was different. To the point where it's the same language, it's all pronounced the same, but the best way, the short of the long is you can tell where somebody is from by listening to how they speak Portuguese, because like people from Rio de Janeiro are very sing song, like da 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 da, and very like woo, and a person from Sao Paulo is not the same. It's maybe a little more like this, right? And then you take in my mother's language, Cree, and you take a fluent Cree speaker, put them again, and you put them beside a fluid Bush Cree, Swampy Cree,
Right.
Plains Cree, like there's different dialects of the Cree language, and there's going to be differences. So
Yeah.
same thing with food. If you take, I'll just use blue corn mush. You take 3 different individuals from 3 different parts who make blue corn mush, they're going to make it a little different.
Slightly different. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, so let me go into the next one. Like, okay, and that kind of is part of when we talk about the caveat right into the next sort of topic. It's like, how do you see that in indigenous people embracing their sovereignty, right? Because there's always this issue of, you know, which part is our identity, right? It's knowing our origin, knowing our story, knowing our language is all tied to our identity. Now, you know, sometimes we don't see our value. Young people, if we were to talk to some young Native people, a lot of them don't see their value in the world now because the larger world doesn't really represent them or represent whatever traditionally they may have known.
Or something else.
Right. So where do you see food and how that can be used as a way to embrace your sovereignty as an indigenous person?
I think food is a fantastic tool to use. You take a look. I'll use my family, my mom's side of the family, even my father's side of the family. And any time I go back home and I walk in the door and I see my Kokum Creefer grandmother, it's not a hi, how are you? It's a hi, have you eaten yet?
Right.
And I think that is pretty much the same mentality or thinking or way of life with a lot of indigenous communities. It's not we're not too worried on how you're doing. It's like, have you eaten? Because there's a connection there. When I go back home, all the laughter, the catching up, the teasing, the bullying, and all that, it happens in the kitchen. It happens around the table. Right. It happens around food, from in the garden, picking it, or even just processing a fresh hunt, right. Breaking it down, prepping it, cooking it. Everything happens in the kitchen or at the table. And in my family, the kitchen and the dining room are, it's open. You see end to end. And right. If you make a bad joke about grandma, she's going to pick up that coffee cup and throw it at your head, and you're going to go, oh, grandma's aim is not what it used to be, which is a good thing because I would have gotten it right here.
Right.
My brother can attest to that. And it's bonding. It connects, yes. Right? And if you take a look at celebrations, it's not, hey, let's open a can of 6-pack of beer or something and have some drinks. It's like, no, we're gonna cook up some food and we're gonna have it put out, spread out, invite everyone to partake and share. Right. And there's always more than enough to feed everyone, which is why everyone brings their Tupperware.
Right.
But it's a celebration of whatever the occasion may be, whether it be a fresh hunt or right. Someone getting married, right. Even taking a look at funerals or a wake. Right. Any wake that I've gone to in my community or another indigenous community, yeah, it's a sad thing. It's a passing of life, whether it be too early or at its time. Right. But there's always food at the wake, and it's that food where you can sit down and it sparks up conversation about the person, where you go, right. Here we are having moose stew with bannock. You remember how Mr. Joe John Smith, who just passed away, used to love his bannock, and he would just sit there and can tell you story after story, and it's bonding. It connects, and you take a look at the youth today. There's a lot going on. More than anything today, technology has a part of that, but at the same time, you bring up food sovereignty. There's not much access to proper food.
Right.
A lot of it is high processed food, junk food, high salt. There's no access to it,
Right.
Or very limited access. But at the same time, there's the lack of education or knowledge or knowing how to actually. And I'm just going to use tomatoes,
Mm-hmm.
to take fresh tomatoes and make a tomato sauce from scratch.
Right.
Right. And it's not because they don't know how, or they weren't taught. It's just because they just don't know how, or they weren't taught. They haven't been given that educational tool.
Right.
And the lack of the resources to produce that, because let's face it, a lot of my indigenous community back home, to get to the nearest grocery store that has fresh produce and meat and everything, it's an hour and a half drive away. So when you go into town, it's a day trip.
Right.
And
Right.
you go into town. And when you go in winter, it's awesome because then you can fill up the back of the truck with stuff as well and bring it back. You know, to
Right. You can bring your ice cream back without a cooler.
Exactly. And then when you do go into town, yeah, your family comes with you, and then all of a sudden you have your kids that are going, "Hey, Dad, I'm hungry. Mom, I'm hungry. I want to eat. I want to eat." Well, you don't have a kitchen to cook what you just bought, so you got to go to a restaurant to have something to eat. And the fastest, best thing to have is, unfortunately, McDonald's, KFC, Wendy's, things like that, which is just fast processed food, which isn't the healthiest. It's not the best. It just satisfies an urge, which is hunger.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So to use food as a tool, it's one of the best things to me that there's. And I'll give you another example. My son's 2 years old today, trying to make supper, and he's more concerned not what I'm doing, but what I'm doing, and how can I get the chair into the kitchen so that I can put him on the chair so he can watch and partake in what I'm doing.
Right.
So,
and I saw that video you posted with him putting his stuff in the bowl. He had his stuff organized, and he had his little hand mixer over there to the side.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't realize, because a lot of times we're so caught up in everyday life, but we don't realize how much we mirror, right, to the next generation, right? And so just the fact that he sees what you do, you know, now hopefully he'll be able to connect the dots as he gets older and matures, you know, and his mind comes into form. But even just seeing it is a big step, because some kids never see that, right? Like you said, they see the running to the McDonald's, and they see the running to all these high processed areas, and they think that is what it's about, right? And then later, when they realize they have these health issues, or their parents have modeled that same lifestyle and their parents are having these health issues, then they start looking at, what kind of food am I putting in my body and how important, you're right. But again, it goes back to, if you're doing it the right way, you're actually exercising your sovereignty, because you're taking care of your body in an empowering way, right?
Yeah.
To be strong warriors, or be strong mothers and fathers and stuff, right? You know.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's important because my son is mixed race. I'm First Nations, Indigenous, whatever term we're using nowadays. My father is being white, and my wife is first generation Canadian, but her family's from Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
So now you factor all that in with my son, and being born in New York City. So he's now a citizen of the United States of America, which is fantastic.
Right.
And I'm jealous of that. But he is a living melting pot of culture, right there. So when I cook, I do my best to make as much Asian cuisine as possible, because my wife likes it. It's what she grew up with, and I've been influenced with my travel with Asian cuisine. I introduce indigenous ingredients to my son. I don't go full out indigenous because I can't get fresh moose nose to make moose nose soup. So
Right, right,
got to work with what I got.
right, right.
But there's things there, and at the same time, for example, one of the things my wife and I miss about living in Brazil is a bread called pão de queijo,
Mm-hmm.
and it's made with tapioca starch. And
Mm.
so yesterday, my son and I whipped it up, which for him is awesome because it means I get to bring out the KitchenAid and it goes bzzz, as he likes to describe it.
Right.
And I get him involved. I help him. He helps me weigh everything out and put it in. And yeah, we make a mess. He's 2 years old. That's part of the program. And yes, sometimes it frustrates me. But then at the same time, I got to remember I'm not in a professional kitchen and he's 2 years old.
Right, right.
But it's that bonding experience. It's that I'm helping to instill in him just some basic knowledge, some basic understanding of we don't just go to Walmart or Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or Costco or to McDonald's, which I've never taken him to a McDonald's unless it was to change his diaper.
But then you infuse certain values, right? That are, I guess, like I said, passed down, like your grandma, if you made fry bread with your granny and you made cobbler or whatever it was, with your granny. And she might say, well, you need to make sure you do this, boy. And it's just a subtle thing, right? And you may not remember it until later on. You might hear it, it'll reconnect, and you'll be like, I remember my dad said that when we were working on on that beef stew, or we working on that venison, and he mentioned this and that, and it'll click, right? But see, and that's the thing, like you said, it's that bonding. It's just the fact that you're there, right? You're present. He's as present as he can be as a weebie, but he's hearing stuff, right? And that you never forget certain things that you hear, right? Because then again and again, and maybe I like to always think about the critic in the movie Ratatouille, right? As soon as he ate that ratatouille dish, he remembered standing in the dirt road where the kids maybe had bullied him, and his mom said, "Come inside, let's have a meal," right? And it made him feel better.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too, is everyone thinks like language it's a difficult thing, but there's two international languages that no matter where you are in the world, you're always going to connect with. One being music,
right?
The other one's food.
Yeah,
food is a language all itself. You eat something and it's going to trigger a memory from your youth or a place or point in time, or like as you said, something that your grandmother may have said to you about something, and you're gonna go, "Oh crap!" Right?
Yeah, or feeling.
Food is exactly. It's
feeling.
Food is a very powerful thing.
I remember my granny, because I spent a lot of time with my granny, pretty much co-raised me. And I could remember every morning when she would get up, she was always up about 4 or 5 o'clock every morning, and she was cooking. And I almost knew what day, like what kind of day it was going to be based on what she was cooking. Like if it was going to be a busy day, and I didn't have to see nothing, right? I could just smell what was being cooked. And it was just the most amazing thing to have to be able to say, oh, well, we're going to be running a lot today, so we're going to eat a little heavier today because we might not eat for a long time, right? Or if it's going to be, we'll be around the house today, we're going to eat different things, right? It was amazing. We're getting close on time, which I told you was going to go, but if you could real quick, is 2 more questions, like I want to kind of hit real quick, and we're going to double them up. If there's one nugget that in your experience you would like to share with the general public that you feel is important to remember or know about the whole process of food and the foundation, whatever, however you want to think, but if it's something very important that you wish people to know about why food is important. And the other one is like, what's on the new roadmap for you? What's some of the new endeavors you are coming upon and looking to do, and maybe talk about the I Collective a little bit, real quick, and just kind of shoot that out here while we kind of bring it to a little slow crawl here.
Okay, so we got about 10 minutes left, I presume.
Yes, a little bit, about 10 minutes, yeah.
All right, I'll try and fit all this in then. So to answer your first question, to look at it with a cultural standpoint as well, just to be open-minded.
Okay.
To be very open-minded. Again, I'm not here to say why aren't you people giving us the respect and the representation that we need. There's other people that are doing that. I'm looking at going forward and being okay. These are what we need to do, and one, to be respectful and mindful of what it is that you're doing. By all means, ask questions. Never be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
The only way you're going to know more about a certain culture, even with the indigenous culture or its cuisine, is to ask.
Right.
The only way, right? I mean, that's how we gain knowledge.
Right.
When cooking or playing with indigenous ingredients or cuisine, just give understanding, respect, and credit. Credit to being a big thing. There's a lot of fantastic chefs out there that are cooking fantastic Mexican cuisine. Where did they learn that cuisine? They went to Oaxaca or Mexico City. They found an abuelo, and they learned from them. And they came back, and poof, they're doing fantastic. Have they given recognition to the person that taught them?
Right.
That is a big thing. Like, you don't have to send them a check, fine, but give them the recognition that they deserve, right? Because food is more than just putting food in your belly for substance. I mean, yeah, that's the primary thing, but it in so many cultures around the world, it's more than that, right? Don't be afraid to burn something.
Right. Right.
I burn something once a month, mainly because I got a kid in my arm, but I burn something, I crack some eggs, I make a mess.
Right.
It's part of cooking.
Yeah.
What's new coming down the road?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, don't give away no secrets now. The secrets, don't let nobody know. But
that's a great question. For us as a family here in New York City,
because this pandemic has made things very challenging to even see out too far. You know what I mean? So
no, definitely. But we are here in New York for a certain period of time, and we are on the last leg of that time period. So there are some things up in the air with regards to that. I won't give away the secrets right now. Buy me a coffee and I might be able to tell you in person. But
slip you my granny's sweet potato deep dish casserole pie, which nobody seems to know in my family how to duplicate.
We can work something out. But it's looking interesting. One way or another, I guarantee you, I will be continuing to cook, continuing to study about my culture and its cuisine, one way, one how. Right now, one of my focus being is, as you mentioned, the I Collective. And what the I Collective is a nonprofit organization of indigenous chefs, activists, seed keepers, knowledge keepers. Did I say artists?
Yeah.
Okay, artists. So just a group of fantastic indigenous people, and we are doing our best to be better educated, to be educators, and to bring awareness to not just non-indigenous people, but indigenous people as well, about food sovereignty and ingredients, and empowering the people, and as I mentioned, recognition of everything that we do and what other people are doing. And yeah, it's a great little family of about 18 people, and we're right now currently doing a pop-up in Northampton, Massachusetts,
Okay.
with a restaurant called Belly of the Beast. No dine-in, but it is dine-out, carry away, or delivery, focusing on indigenous ingredients, some pre-colonial items as well. Pre-colonial meaning no cooking with beef, chicken, pork, processed flours, and sugars.
Okay. Okay.
So a very healthy,
Yeah.
healthy way of looking at things. Again, the traditional way of doing things before colonialism.
Right.
And it's been going well. Definitely an adventure, but its primary goal was to try and help keep Belly of the Beast going, to not just showcase indigenous culture and cuisine with the iCollective, but to help iCollective members and staff at Belly of the Beast who have been affected by COVID to be able to bring in some more additional income to help give people income for 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, just to help make ends meet. And a lot of people don't understand that the toll that this pandemic has taken on everybody.
You look at New York. I mean, I ride around. Sometimes I'm on my way home or whatever. I'm driving. I look at just so many, even poor mom and pop businesses and restaurants, and just closed. You know, it's just closed. And I mean, it's just, and even large franchise operations that are either reduced storefronts, and like Banana Republic, which I love to shop at. You know, like one of the stores, they just turned it into a factory store. I mean, and they closed another store around, on the other side of town. And I'm just like, wow, this is just really, and I think about now, I'm in the arts, right? So look at the city. I don't know what kind of funding is going to be available for the arts since we can't do theater or anything like that until maybe June of 2021. And that's even probably now suspect, because we don't know when the real vaccine is going to be available for people to be in such close proximity with each other, right?
Oh, definitely.
So it's very frustrating, but I'm glad you got things, you're active, right? That's being, activity spawns more activity, right? So that's a good thing,
Yeah, and that's the thing, is trying to be active. I mean, I should be physically active because I do have the COVID belly. I'll admit that on live camera.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little jiggly too,
that Will Smith song is going to get really popular again, but it's just trying to keep your head in the game, and there's time now. So I mean, yeah, my primary goal or job right now is being a full-time dad, and I'm doing my best to be a father. Every day is a learning experience. I'm young. I've only been doing it for 2 years, obviously, but doing the best that we can as a young family, and making ends meet, and just continuing to learn and to educate, be better educated, to educate others the best that we can.
Right. Yeah. Well, this about wraps it up for us. Pretty much. We're a little bit, over the slot time. I don't know what they do with it, but we're recording. So, yeah. So, I mean, definitely want to stay in touch and keep you on our radar. And, if you go back out of the country or whatever, we'd like to follow you, at least get updates and, see how you're doing and so forth. If I could convince you to stay here in New York and open a restaurant, then maybe I could do maybe just a 40-seater, maybe 40 people with an outdoor view,
Definitely.
of the sunrise.
Definitely. Yeah. On the East River.
That'd be another conversation, when we work on that, the recipe, that little secret message,
Yes, sir.
But so I don't know, but I'll forward you an invoice. So if you want the honorarium to be donated to an organization, or you want it directly to you, let me know. And the email correspondence, and we'll make sure we get that out to you. We're gonna do them all at once at the end of the month, so everybody, our books will be straight on this end. But yeah, you know, if you get a chance, look at some of the other posts that I've done on Amarinda, different people that I've spoken to. You know, again, just trying to give the viewers or whoever gets this, because it's really not sent out to like, you know, share like to make money or anything like that. It's pretty much just on Amarinda's website, and we just share it with our individual listserv, people that we know. And it has gotten into the hands of some non-native people that have really had some good response or good questions so far, like with the whole Thanksgiving thing from the Narragansett and the Wampanoag community. You know, I talked with a lady from that museum, and, you know, we've had school teachers be like, wow, I'd like to learn more about this. And, you know, as a resource for, because, you know, a lot of schools are starting to change their curriculum, right? And, you know, it used to be a home ec class in school. When I was in middle school, which is, oh God, no, you talking about your age. We don't even want to talk about my grades. But there was home ec. We had to take, I was in middle school, and you had to take shop, you had to take sewing, you had to take home ec. And it was not a thing of, I don't want to do this. No, this was standard, you know, half of the year program, right? And I mean, I love home ec because it taught you math. It also taught you, you know, the artistry, and it also gave you, it was therapy, right? It was therapeutic. People have found reduced stress when they cook, you know, and of course, making other people happy makes you happy, right? It's always a byproduct associated with it. And so I think that needs to come back into schools, right? And to teach that, like, you know, like the 4-H programs of teaching a garden, how to grow a garden, how to take care of one, and what to do with the food when you grow it, when it comes out, right? You know, so I commend you for making them, because there are a lot, there's so much that can be learned and shared, you know, with what you do, right? And again, like you said, it brings people together to start conversation, right? And these are how things travel. We don't have a patent on certain things just because somebody comes and they, oh, I like that. That was pretty good. Let me try that when I go back home, right? You know, but it's also, like you said, giving respect to where you found that, right? Or where you came across that, because that keeps the positive energy going in a good way, right? And so yeah, so I thank you for your time. With me, David and I have a joke here at the office, and so it is when I announce you, it's like this: Sir Glabus is here. Hear ye, hear ye. Right?
Say that a couple more times, I might get used to that.
So yeah, so if you want somebody to come open you up in the court, in the center court, I'll do that for you. I hear my horn. No, but I really appreciate your time, and thank you for being with us today. All right.
No problem. Thank you for
And I'll
having
send
me.
you the link. You'll have it so you can use it for you, whatever, if you want to share it or yourself or what have you. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right. So
Awesome.
hug your wife and your son for me, and just, you know, my blessings to all of you all.
Will do. And thank
All
you
right.
as well. And blessings to you and your friends and family.
All right. Thank you. I own them.
All right. Cheers. Hi.